Hi, welcome to the Joe Luca Real Estate Joe. I am Joe and I'm your host every Tuesday evening from 6:05 to 7 p.m. right here on WNRI 99.9 FM 1380 on the AM dial. And you can also check us out streaming 24/7 at WNRI.com. I want to thank you for tuning in to our show this week, and I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors, Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. Vern is licensed by the state of Rhode Island to be a public insurance adjuster. The operative word is public. That means he works for you, the homeowner, and not the insurance company. Not the insurance company. All you have to do is give him a call at 484-300-8495. Again, that's 484-300-8495. I know it's not a Rhode Island area code, but he's a Rhode Island guy. Give him a call at 484-300-8495, and he will get back in touch with you within 24 hours. All you have to do is give him a call. Again, that's Vern Rainville, 484-300-8495. Also, a shout out to Anthony Betancourt at Compass Title and Escrow. Anthony and his team do a good job taking care of our buyers and sellers of residential real estate. And he's great because if you have questions, you can reach out to them. They manage the process well, so there are no surprises during your transaction. And even if I have questions for a status update or questions on any aspect of a transaction, they are always there to provide answers. Now, if you have any questions during your transaction, you could certainly give me a call, your humble host, Joe Luca, 401-409-5030. Again, 401-409-5030. And I will get back to you right away. Now, folks, one of the things I wanted to talk about, of course, is real estate. You know, the real estate market has been very vibrant the past several years. We've been very blessed in this part of the country, because sales have remained brisk and property values have continued to increase. This has been fueled by a reduction in the mortgage interest rates. Every week I go to my trusty standby mortgagenewsdaily.com, and a 30-year fixed rate mortgage is 6.5, a VA 6.06, and an FHA, excuse me, the FHA is 6.06 and the VA is 6.08. I know that doesn't seem like a big difference, but those rates are quite low compared to where we've been. So, you know, if you're thinking about buying a home, don't wait, because, as I said, property values are continuing to increase in this part of the country. So the longer you wait, for example, people say, well, I'm going to wait for the market to crash, or I'm going to wait for rates to drop. Well, there were people who told me that last year, and 24 months ago. The market still hasn't crashed. Rates have not gone back down to where they were before. And what has happened is home prices have gone up. If you were looking at buying a home in Rhode Island, a single-family home in January of this year, and you haven't purchased anything yet, well, the house is about $50,000 more now than it was in January of this year. Let that sink in. In not even 9 months, home prices have increased $50,000. That's $50,000. So don't wait, because, you know, interest rates would have to go down to like practically zero for you to make up that kind of an increase in value. So if you purchase a house in January, and let's say rates were in the 7% range, you would be $50,000 ahead of the game. So if you're thinking about buying, just the first thing you want to do is put together a game plan. The best step to start is call me, your local realtor, 401-409-5030. You can also text me at that number, 401-409-5030, and I'll answer any questions that you have. There's no obligation. What does happen is if you want to start looking at homes, we are going to have to sign some paperwork. State law, we have to sign a relationship disclosure form. Company policy, you have to sign a exclusive buyer agreement. We can go over all of that, but whether it's with me or with any other realtor, you're going to have to sign those two documents, okay? Because that's the way the business has changed over the past couple of years. So we've been talking a lot about buyers the past couple of weeks, and things that buyers should do to prepare to buy a home if they're not ready just yet. But something that's important too is sellers. We need inventory, we the marketplace, okay? And sometimes folks, a lot of the houses that we've been getting to come on the market have been divorce situations, job relocation, as well as folks moving into nursing homes and just passing on. And then when someone passes on, many times the family inherits the home, or they don't know if they inherit the home. So there are some things that you really need to do, and I want to talk a little bit about those tonight so that you have an idea of what to expect when you are buying or about to buy a home. Okay, so just give us, if you have questions after the show, give us a call at 401-409-5030, and I'll answer any questions that you have at that time. But one of the first things you want to do, if someone in the family passes away, is you need to determine legal and ownership status. Okay, so confirm the legal ownership through the probate or trust documentation. Okay, a lot of times what you want to do, the best way to do that is to contact, if it's the family attorney or if the homeowner had prepared a trust, talk to the attorney who prepared the trust so you can see how that is structured and who the decision maker for that trust would be, who the trustee is. Okay, one of the things you're going to have to do is determine is obtain the death certificate and any other relevant estate document. So if there is a trust, if there is a will, these are things you want to start to get in order. The death certificate, you as the surviving family members can certainly obtain a copy of that. You will need that for the mortgage company, for tax purposes, etc. So don't forget. That's one of the first things you have to do. But then also you want to reach out to the attorney. If it's a family attorney, if it's an estate attorney, probate, whatever it may be, whoever the person was that was involved, you want to get them involved as soon as possible, and they will be able to provide you with guidance so you don't spin your wheels, you don't make bad decisions, and you don't engage or get yourself involved in any situations that could prove detrimental or costly. Something else you want to be aware of is, are there any liens or encumbrances on the property against a title? So is there a mortgage? Is there a second mortgage, a home equity line of credit, or a home equity loan? If it was a situation where the person was having a tough time paying bills, are there any mechanics liens against the property where perhaps they had some work done on the house, were unable to pay the contractor, and the contractor filed a mechanics lien? If that's the case, it's better to find out about that early on. You don't want to wait until you're selling the house, it goes under agreement, and then the title attorney says, hey, wait a minute, we have a problem. Because sometimes these things can be resolved rather quickly, but other times they can't be. If it's let's say a mechanics lien that was filed at some point in the past, you have to locate the person that put that mechanics lien. Now, what if they moved? What if their company closed up? What if they passed on? It won't be something that can be easily or quickly rectified. So you're better off finding out about these things as soon as possible. Now, of course, when you confirm legal ownership, then that's important because now you know who can legally sign documents for the property. Okay? And of course, if you have an estate attorney, that's always great. And they'll be able to provide you with a good explanation for tax and legal implications. They will also provide guidance if probate is required, and if it is, you want to have that completed again sooner rather than later, because when it comes time to transfer the property, transfer ownership, that will make it easier. Clarifying ownership among heirs. If there's not a will, if there's not a trust, or, who has the authority to sell? Is it the children, the offspring? Is it nieces, nephews, siblings, parents? Okay, so these are the things that you would want to take care of, or you'd want to address as soon as possible. But one of the very first things you're going to want to do is consult with the family attorney, the probate attorney, the estate attorney, whoever it might be. If there is a financial advisor involved, maybe you could reach out to them and see if they could tell you who the attorney to speak with would be the best person to answer questions for you. Next, what you're going to want to do is financial and tax considerations. Okay, so how long was the home owned? What is the status with capital gains for tax implications? Is there a stepped up basis? Okay, these are questions that should be directed towards a tax professional, and they'll be able to provide guidance in that regard. Okay, I'm a real estate guy, I'm not a tax guy, so I can help you estimate property value using comps and or doing a broker price opinion, or perhaps obtaining, retaining the services of an appraiser to have an appraisal, a formal appraisal. Many times that's not necessary. You have to spend money to get that. And you don't necessarily need a formal appraisal to establish a value for sale. Now, if there were some heirs who wanted to contest the will or something, then you may want to have an appraisal done, so everybody's looking at the same valuation, and someone else isn't claiming that they know someone who values the property at a higher amount or lower amount. Next, you're going to want to try and determine what outstanding debts are tied to the property. We mentioned this earlier as far as mortgages, taxes, utilities. Are there any debts that went unpaid and may now be a lien against the property? Car loans, credit cards, large utility bills. Okay, we've had situations where $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 bills from the gas company were liened against the property. Okay, so that's something you want to try and determine what those numbers are as well. And then, of course, you want to touch base with a tax advisor. If the owner, the decedent, worked with a tax professional, you would want to contact that person. But if they didn't, or you don't know who it is, you would want to identify your own tax professional to determine any inheritance and sale related filings. Of course, the estate attorney, probate attorney, and attorney could provide guidance for that as well. And then, of course, what you're going to need to do is, and the attorney would give you guidance in this regard, is set up an estate account. So it would be a bank account for the estate of so-and-so, dated whatever the date is. Okay, and this is how you can manage sale proceeds and expenses. So the monies would flow into this account, and then bills or debts would be paid out of that account. But again, this is a suggestion. If an attorney, if you're working with a tax attorney or a tax advisor, they will provide you with the guidance and the information that you need to really make a good determination on to how to proceed. okay? Because it's very important that you do everything the right way. You don't want to waste time and potentially money by taking a shortcut and making a foolish mistake, because foolish mistakes aren't free. They typically cost money, okay? So, you really want to pay attention to that as well. Next, a lot of times, people, they pass away, and if it's in the house or if it's in, a hospital or a nursing home, um, the home is probably going to be full of all of their personal belongings, okay? Unless they were planning ahead, which I'll tell you, most people don't. So typically, um, what has to be done is the personal belongings have to be cleaned out, have to be removed in a respectful and thorough manner, okay? Um, it's you need to consult with family members, maybe have everybody go through, see if there's anything in there that has sentimental value for them, and, take care of this in an organized manner, okay? And again, if you have an attorney, they could certainly provide guidance for this as well. But it should be done under the auspices, under the oversight of an attorney, to make sure that no one takes things that are not they're not entitled to. Okay. So next, after the home is emptied out or while that process is ongoing, what you want to do is start looking around for, all right, what needs to be repaired? What, excuse me, deferred maintenance issues exist that could adversely impact the value of the property? Okay, an example would be loose gutters, water flowing, against the foundation, and it's making, dampness in the basement or causing mold in the basement, or windows that were left open and, inclement weather got in and then it damaged the hardwood floors in the bedroom or in the dining room or whatever the situation is. These are the types of repairs that would be necessary. One of the most important things, and it's not necessarily one of the most expensive things, and you want to get on this right away, is yard preparation. You want to keep the yard, the landscaping, well maintained. Okay, you don't want the grass to grow tall. You don't want it to look like the house is vacant. Because if the house looks vacant, it's just a matter of time before some nefarious individuals are going to take a shot at breaking into the house to either, steal what belongings in the house, or damage the house, or steal copper pipes. That's something that was really prevalent about 15 years ago. It hasn't been prevalent in a while, but again, you don't want to find out about that because it's something that could easily be taken care of. Just keep the grass cut, trim the shrubs, don't let the mail pile up on the outside the front door. Little signals like that could indicate to someone driving by, this house seems to be vacant. And then they may case the house and see, oh yes, it is vacant. And the next thing you know, they break in on the back side of the house, no one's paying attention, and then valuables are removed from the house. Okay. I've seen things seen houses where this has happened. Okay, and it's not fun for the family members, and it's frustrating as a real estate professional to have to coach people through this. But just simple steps: maintain the house, turn lights on and off, change it a couple times a week so it doesn't look like it's vacant. Because if it looks like it's vacant, there is a much greater chance that you're going to have someone break in that house and steal belongings or vandalize the house or do something like that. Okay. After you have the repairs taken care of, the necessary repairs, okay, something that's not functioning as it should, something that has, the maintenance has been deferred, so it's creating a problem in the house. These things you want to take care of ASAP. Next, you want to think about, do we want to make any cosmetic upgrades? like painting, like trimming all the shrubs, okay? You cut the grass, maybe trim the shrubs to make it look better, because again, curb appeal, the first impression is very important. And just in addition to cutting the grass, edge along the walkways, edge along the street or the curb, make everything, all those lines, those sight lines, very clean and crisp. You know, do the same thing with the shrubs growing around the house. You don't want shrubs growing right up against the house. Trim them so there's 1.5 to 2 feet between the foundation and the vegetation, because you want the moisture not to stay there against the foundation. You want it to be able to evaporate, to dry out after it stops raining. Because if the moisture stays there, if it's trapped there, it's going to go through the foundation into the basement. Now you could have other problems that you'd have to deal with and manage. And those types of expenses can be costly. So just pay attention to little things like that so that you can potentially save major expenses. You know, was the person a smoker? Does, you know, should the walls be painted? If the person, the homeowner, the occupant was a smoker, you know, what you're going to want to do is clean those walls and then paint them. And then also you're going to want to kind of fumigate, you know, clean out the smell of smoke. Okay, you can do that with ozone. There are machines you can rent to do that. But you're going to want to do that. If the walls are dirty, clean them and paint them. You know, these are things that don't cost a lot of money, but will make a big difference. Okay, because if you walk into a house, or if I walk into a house as an agent with a buyer, and it's the first thing that hits you is, wow, the smell of cigarette smoke, or oh, the smell of pet urine. These are things you want to get rid of. The smell of mold, mildew, you know, stale air. It doesn't cost a lot of money to rectify these problems, these issues, but take care of it, grab the bull by the horns, make the minor repairs necessary, okay? And this is really the first step into the next point, which is giving the home a deep cleaning. So you want the house to smell clean, to have a very spick and span feel when you walk in. You want it to look clean. You don't want to see dirty fingerprints. You don't want to see, you know, footprints on the carpets. Have the carpets professionally cleaned. Clean the walls. Paint them if necessary. Clean the hard surface floors. Okay. Clean the basement out. Clean up all of the spider webs and everything that's down there, so that when someone comes in, their memory isn't going to be, oh, that was the basement that was so dirty and had a bad smell. You want them to remember, oh wow, the basement had a nice high ceiling, it was bright, plenty of storage down there. We could make that into a media room or whatever. You want to invite the consumer to think about how they could add value to the home. Because if they have an opportunity to add value, it makes it easier for you to get a higher price. Okay? So, of course, as the listing agent, we would point out the opportunity to add value. You know, you could put you know, an in-law on this property because you have an exterior entrance to the basement and you have all this room in the basement. Oh, and by the way, there was a bathroom down here several years ago, so the plumbing is already stubbed in, whatever it may be. These are the types of things you want to think about when you're walking through the home, but giving it a deep cleaning pays off in spades. Okay, hire professionals. Don't do it yourself. Pay someone. It's going to cost several $100s to give it the deep cleaning it needs. If you have to have carpets steam cleaned, do that as well. Okay, because I guarantee you it will make a big difference. Now, let's say, you know, the family went through the house and there was still a lot of stuff left over that's there, and you can't clean it because you've got all this furniture there, you've got closets full of clothing or linen closets full of towels and sheets. Donate it to, if it's, you know, just kind of either Salvation Army or, Savers, a place like that, because they can resell it to folks who really could use something that is they're not going to have to pay top dollar for. And especially furniture too. Sometimes the furniture, don't throw it so it goes in the landfill. You can either advertise it yourself on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, or just offer to say, hey, come and get it, it's free. Okay, if depending on the condition and the quality of the furniture, because some furniture is worth more than others. But if it's had a lot of abuse, it's painted furniture or it has splits, again, don't assume that it has to go to the dump, to the solid waste facility, because you could donate it to a place like a Salvation Army or a Savers, and then someone could repurpose it. They could buy it, take it home, refinish it. There are some YouTube channels that I watch where people do this. That's what they do. They'll buy an old bureau for $20, take it home, strip all the paint off it, give it a nice refinishing job, put some new hardware on there, and then they can sell it to homeowners or somebody who's starting their own apartment, moving out on their own. So please don't necessarily throw everything in the dump. Okay, you want to try and repurpose it, or upcycle is a word that they say a lot. But that's that's something that's very important, because again, our landfills are across the country. They're filling up pretty quickly. Okay, so you don't want to do anything that will unnecessarily contribute to that problem. Now, so you got rid of everything. Now do the deep clean. The carpets were steam clean. The house looks great from the outside because you had all the landscaping done. You have nice straight edges along your walkways and along the driveway, along the curb. Looks really good. The inside of the house, you walk in, it pops. You've got bright lights. Don't use compact fluorescent bulbs. That's a big no-no. What you want to do is you want to use bright lights, the brightest bulbs you can use, because that makes the house look better. Same thing in the basement. Put bright lights in the basement because you can see how big the space is. If you don't have bright lights, you can't see how big it is. It feels a little more almost claustrophobic. Okay, so next what you're going to do is you're going to call someone like me, Joe Luca, Luca, 401-409-5030. And what I'll do is I can help you, again, confirm that you've been doing the right things, give you guidance, provide guidance so that you don't spend too much money repairing things that you shouldn't repair. Because some things don't bring more value to the house than what you're spending to get those items accomplished. For example, putting in a new kitchen, putting in a bathroom. Unless your kitchen was from 1965, don't put in a new kitchen. And even then, let's wait and see, because it depends on the house, where the house is located, where we are in the business cycle, what the market is doing, who's buying the houses. Okay, these are things that would make a difference. Now, sometimes folks are like, oh, I'm going to put a new kitchen in or upgrade, do the bathroom. You don't want to do that because, again, you're not going to get the money back. And maybe you could just do something with cleaning it up, putting paint on it, and you'll get more money for it. Not as much as if it had a new bathroom and a new kitchen, but you won't have to spend as much money, and you'll be able to sell it as quick or quicker. Because you can put a new kitchen in and maybe the buyer doesn't like it. So now you're looking to get a higher price because of what you invested in the house. But buyers are like, yeah, but I don't like that style. And a lot of times in situations like this, you have folks who are making decisions about selling the house that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And most buyers are in their maybe late 20s, mostly 30s, maybe early 40s. So there's a very good chance that you could have a difference in taste for what is valued, okay? Because a 30-year-old has very different taste and wants and needs from a house than a 60 or 70-year-old, okay? And you need to bear that in mind, okay? Again, if you're working with a professional realtor, they can provide you with suggestions on staging the home, okay? Now you can stage the home with real items like, real furniture, or you can do a virtual staging, which is something that is used during the marketing and it's visible online. And that can sometimes, it's still kind of expensive, but not as expensive as actual staging with, all new furniture. Okay. These are the things that contribute to setting a competitive listing price. Now, of course, everybody, as a listing agent, when I'm listing someone's home, my job is to help them receive maximum value, monetary and otherwise, for their home. So we're going to try and get as much value as the market will support. Okay, people say real estate agents or sellers are greedy. They're just pushing the prices too high. Listen, we can't push the price any higher than the market will support. Sometimes you price the house at $450,000, and then you have 7 offers pushing it up to $475,000. Okay, so as a listing agent, my job is to help the seller get the most for his or her money. Okay, so that's good for the seller. Clearly, the buyers, if they're willing to pay $475,000 for the house, they feel it's worth it, and they will do that. The buyers who don't feel it's worth $475,000 will just put their offer in at $450,000 or whatever the number is for them. Okay, and that is, basics, the economics 101 for home values. So we try to provide a competitive price. Now, you can't go too high with pricing because ultimately the final arbiter is the appraiser. So if someone wanted to pay $490,000 for the house we priced at $450,000, that may sound good, but unless they're paying cash, it's not their opinion that matters. It's the appraiser's opinion. Now, if I did my job right when I established the house is worth $450,000, there shouldn't be a lot of houses in the $490,000 price range that are similar to this house. Excuse me. So, these are some things that are really essential to pay attention to, because it is taking longer for homes to sell today than it did 6, 12, 18 months ago, 2 years ago. The days on market has been increasing. So, sometimes sellers like, Joe, I haven't had an offer on my house. It's been on the market 14 days. Okay, well, look, I wouldn't start to get nervous until it's on the market for more than 30 days. Okay, if we haven't had any calls and it's been on the market 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe we need to make some adjustments in the price. Okay. Now, something else, and this is one of those things. It's timing the listing strategically for seasonal or market advantages. Now, you can make an argument for why it's good to put your house on the market in the winter when not a lot of people are looking for homes, because there aren't a lot of other homes on the market, so there's less competition. Okay, so you put your home on the market right before Christmas, right after Christmas. There's not a lot of other competition on the market. So people who are looking, generally those folks are very motivated. That's why they're looking in the winter. So perhaps, you may not get the feeding frenzy that you'll get in the spring or the summer, but perhaps you'll get someone who's very motivated to buy a home because they have to, whatever, for a job change or something like that, schooling, etc. They're motivated to move. Okay. Some of the things that we try to do is highlight unique features for the house. So I have a listing that's just went under agreement, and it's a 1960s vintage Cape. It's a 4-bedroom house. Um, so it's a good-sized house, and it's on a little bit over a 10,000 square foot lot. It's a beautiful lot. It's level. It's in a great street in Bristol, Rhode Island. Now, this lot is large enough for an accessory dwelling unit to be built in the back. An accessory dwelling unit, also known as an ADU, also known as an in-law apartment. You know, in the state of Rhode Island and now in Massachusetts as well, laws were passed that allow homeowners to build an ADU, either in your basement, in the garage, in the attic, converting part of your house to an ADU, or if you have enough land, constructing one as a separate structure on your property. Now, of course, you have to comply with all of the local building codes and as well. But this is something you can build, and family members can live there, but you can also rent it out down the road. So that's something to think about, because if you have a 2-bedroom accessory dwelling unit that you can rent out, an extra $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, if that's the case, that adds a lot of value to that house. Okay? So you want to pay attention to these things and talk with a realtor who has been around, been in the business a while, and had some, have been through some business cycles, ups and downs in the economy, because they will know, they'll have the perspective about the marketplace. Now, next, goes on the market, you have offers that come in. What you are going to need to do is start to gather all of your property documents, the deed, insurance, warranties on any work that was done to the house, and provide this to the realtor and the attorney. You're also going to want to talk about the type of sale. Is it a traditional listing? Are you going to go after a cash buyer? Do you want to have an auction? Going for a wholesaler? These are decisions that you can talk to your realtor about, and they'll help you make an educated decision. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about showings. Okay. Now, when you're doing showings at a vacant property, I don't like to do an open house at a vacant property, because I can't control who's coming to that open house. Excuse me. And any member of the public could come in. Now, I can try to vet people to see if they have financing, a pre-approval, what are they looking for. But, you can also try and do things so the house doesn't look empty, doesn't look vacant. But these are decisions that, we can discuss between myself, if it's an estate attorney, or the heirs to the house. We can determine what is the best way to market it. Do we just want to do it one day a week? Saturdays, 12 to 2. Anybody, come on in, come and look at it. That's the time to come. Do it 2 days a week, maybe once during the week after work, and then once on the weekend. These are just different options that are available. Now we get offers and they come in. So this is where your realtor can be really helpful, because when you have multiple offers, the highest offer isn't necessarily the best offer. Okay? Because if you have an offer that's much higher, but they need to get a mortgage, all right, well, how much are they putting down? Are they putting 3.5% down? No money down? Are they putting 25% down? These could have, the answers to these questions could provide you with a guideline on how to proceed with negotiating and or which offer to accept. Okay, so if you have someone that's offering $25,000 over asking price, and they have to get a mortgage, so that means it has to be appraised. So my example from earlier, $450,000 house, somebody comes in, offers $475,000. Now if it's $475,000 and they're putting 20% down, okay, if it's $475,000 and they're putting 3.5% down or no money down, that's something else, because one, you have to go through the inspection, the home inspection, and if the home inspection identifies things that need to be repaired, the person who's only putting 3.5% down may not have the money to make those repairs. So they're going to have to grind you down further on the price, okay? However, if you have someone that's putting 20% down or 25% or paying cash, and you have the home inspection, they may be able to afford to make those repairs. If not, maybe if they choose that they don't want to, then you can start to wheel and deal. It's like, all right, well, how about if we did this, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? Okay, we'll make these repairs, but not those. Okay, that's part of the give and take, the tug of war when negotiating a transaction. Okay, but your realtor can really provide you with some guidance on the best way to look at offers and make a smart decision. Sometimes the offer is great, but, and I may catch heck for saying this, but the lender may not be a good loan officer. Not all loan officers are great. Okay, I've got a great number of people: Dave Campignon, Jeff Gaccione, Joe Baptista, a lot of really good, Louis Rondon over at Semper Home Loan. It's really good lenders, okay? But they're not all that way. And if I don't know who the loan officer is that wrote the loan, that pre-approved the person, or I know, worse yet, that they don't do a good job with their pre-approvals, they just hand them out willy-nilly, I will share that information with the homeowner to help you make a good decision, an informed decision. Because what we don't want to happen is you accept an offer and then, repairs need to be negotiated, they don't have the money, or something else comes up and it goes into final underwriting as you're getting closer to closing, and the underwriters say, no, this person can't get this loan, we don't like this transaction for them, for whatever reason. Okay, the lenders that I work with, the good lenders, that doesn't happen with them. Okay, because they fully underwrite the loan up front. Okay, so you want to work with someone whose pre-approval is as good as gold, because it does not do the listing agent and definitely doesn't do the seller any good by having the property go off the market if it's active under contract off the market, or if it's pending off the market, and then it has to come back on the market because the deal fell through. Okay, so we try to avoid all of this by just, again, staying above board, looking at all the offers, thoroughly reviewing them, and then sharing all the information with the seller. So it's ultimately the seller's decision. The seller may say, you know what, I know it may be a risk, but that person with only putting 3.5% down and offering me all that money, I want to go with that offer. Okay, you're the boss, I advise against it, but that's what we do. Okay, but reviewing offers in a very careful and deliberate manner, looking at the contingencies and the buyer's strength. Now, I've had a situation where on one of my listings, the buyer was a VA buyer. VA loans, they put no money down, zero. This was a $900,000 house. Now, I was very hesitant about this, but I spoke with their lender, or his lender, And the lender was like, listen, Joe, I can't give you specifics, but believe me when I tell you, he has no problem affording this home. He's trying to conserve his cash because he's moving across the country with his family. So I was like, all right, I guess I kind of get it. Um, so then I had to go and sell the seller and his attorney on why we were accepting an offer with only essentially $1,000 down payment for a $900,000 house. Because that's typically not a lot, because it would be very easy for someone to say, I don't want to buy the house. I'll lose my $1,000. It's not a lot of money. Okay. So now we've gone through everything. We've reviewed the offers carefully. We've looked at the contingencies, who's providing the financing, how strong the buyers are financially. Now we prepare for the closing. So many times, a lot of documents can be signed ahead of time, or you can give the attorney power of attorney so they can sign not all, but most of the documents for you. Okay? So that way you don't have to worry about, taking time out of work or whatever the situation might be. You can just sign everything at your convenience, and then the closing can happen whenever. You don't need to be there. Okay? But you want to figure out how the proceeds are going to be distributed, and then also taxes. You're going to have to file taxes. So we have worked with, again, attorneys who are very good at this. They can give you all the guidance that you will need to make good decisions. But you shouldn't do it on your own. Okay, you should talk to an attorney. Again, my number, 401-409-5030. Text or voice at that number. I can give you guidance on what attorneys to reach out to, and they'll be able to help you if you don't have a family attorney, okay, or you don't know who prepared the trust documents. Do they even have a will? Okay. So, these are things that you need to find out. But the first thing you can give, again, your humble host, real estate agent Joe Luca, 401-409-5030, or call an attorney. But I can provide you with names of attorneys to reach out to who would certainly be more than willing to help you with your search. Okay. So yeah, that's that. So that's kind of what you want to do, preparing your home for sale when you've inherited the home. You need to have a really good, tight relationship with the estate or probate or family attorney moving forward. You need to communicate on a regular basis. Okay, it's very important. And then you also need to loop in a real estate professional, a realtor like me, and then I speak with the family as well as the attorney. Okay, if it's a tax attorney or whatever type of attorney it is. Because that way, if we're talking the same language, we're reading from the same sheet of music, it makes life a lot better, a lot smoother, and you can manage expectations. So everybody knows what to expect, what's going to happen. All right. Now, you're a buyer, and your realtor takes you to a home that someone, the owner passed away, the owner went into a nursing home or assisted living. Should you have any concerns? Not necessarily. I mean, I advise my buyer clients to always do a home inspection, never to waive the home inspection. And if you are very confident in your ability to determine the structural integrity of a home, okay, maybe then we could do something for informational purposes only. But you really want to know what you're getting into. And if you don't have an inspection, you are flying blind. Believe me, flying blind. So you need to bear that in mind. When you're looking at a home, a lot of times there are no disclosures either because the attorney or the heirs never lived in the home, so they don't know what the situation is with all the systems, if there was ever any problem with water coming in or anything like that. So you're not going to get the seller disclosure forms, which otherwise are required by law. You will probably get a lead disclosure form, which is just going to most likely say the seller has no idea about lead paint in the house. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I just yawned. So you could be asked to fill out a lead disclosure form. You will have to sign a mandatory real estate relationship disclosure form with your realtor, saying that they represent you as the seller as a designated client representative. Okay. Now, if they bring a buyer in to buy the house, they can't represent the buyer as a designated buyer representative because they're already representing you as the seller. Okay, so if that's the case, they would only have to represent the buyer as a transaction facilitator. Okay, transaction facilitator. That means essentially you take care of everything above board, provide ethical, professional service, handle monies in a very ethical manner. So that's what that means. But once again, you want to pay attention to the subtleties because they could make a big difference in what happens. So something else, and again, I would suggest you lean on your realtor for this, because I've been in literally thousands upon thousands of homes, so there's not much I haven't seen in a home, and I can share my insights with you, my buyer client, as we walk through the home or after we walk through the home. Okay? Because some of these things may seem insignificant, maybe they are insignificant, but it could be a big deal to you, the buyer. I may not be aware of it. Okay, so that's why it's important to identify what the potential problems are. What red flags do I see when I'm walking around the basement or stick my head in the attic and looking at the attic? Okay, these are the things that can make a big difference in how much you are going to enjoy your home after you purchase your home. Okay, folks, you've been listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 on the FM dial, 1380 on the AM dial, and of course streaming at WNRI.com. This is our 12th year we've been on the show. This show's been on the air quite a long time. I'm very grateful that you continue to listen in and watch on either YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever you might catch it. We will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. If you have any questions, give me a call or text me at 401-409-5030. Again, Joe Luca, Realtor, that's L-U-C-A. My number is 401-409-5030. I'll answer any questions that you have. Shout out to Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. He works for you, the homeowner, not, I repeat, not the insurance company. Operative word is public. Okay, he's licensed by the state of Rhode Island. All you have to do, if you think you may have a claim, you're not sure, give him a call, 484-300-8495. Again, 484-300-8495. That's Vern Rainville. It's not a Rhode Island number, yes, I know, but he is a Rhode Island guy. He will get back to you within 24 hours. Okay, 24 hours. So don't delay. Give him a call, 484-300-8495. 484-300-8495. 484-300-8495. Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. He will definitely hook you up. And of course, Compass Title and Escrow, Anthony Betancourt and his team do a fantastic job taking care of our clients. So stay tuned. Rick Murney is coming up with the Old Time Preaching Ministry, and we'll be back next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.